Good afternoon and welcome to Coffee, Tech, and Opportunity. I'm Will McNeil, CEO and founder of Black Tech Jobs. We are super excited to come to you today live for this episode of Coffee, Tech, and Opportunity. We have brought on a phenomenal guest to join us. His name is William Houston. He is the Director and Vice President of software engineering at Fifth Third Bank. And without further ado, I'd like to bring on William Houston. William, welcome to the show.
Hey, hello, Will. Good to have you. We got William and Will on the show today. How many times do you have that?
That does not, I think this is a first. I do think this is a first. We're super excited to have you join us, William. We are live streaming today live on LinkedIn, Twitter, and on YouTube. And William, I'd like to get started. You know, we love to talk less about us and talk more about you and what you've learned and how we might disseminate some of the amazing experiences that you've had and learnings that you've had over your professional career. And I always like to start with this question because very often with Black and technology issues, we often talk about diversity, but I also want to talk about technology today too. And so specifically about you, you're a smart guy, great experience, great educational background. You could have done anything. And why did you choose technology?
All right, so don't laugh because I'm going to date myself. But before you had the PS5s and the Nintendo Switches, there was a video game system called the Bally Astrocade. I know even as I say that, Google was lighting up with searches on what is a Bally Astrocade. It was a game system, late 70s, early 80s. In fact, I still have the game system. I'm not sure if it works, but I still have it at the house. And so it was a video game system. You take home, you play at home, and one of the cartridges. When I looked in the product manual, it had a cartridge for BASIC. And for some reason, even as a child, I looked at this thing and I was like, I want to get this cartridge so I can learn how to create my own games and develop software. So I'm not even sure where that bug came from, but I thank God for that idea that he gave me even at a young age. So I wanted to get into the coding as a young age. So I progressed through life. And hats off to our parents. All you parents, I encourage you continue to sow into your children because you never know what things you expose them to that will catch on and help them in the future. My mom was very artsy, drawing and painting and stuff. And I think that's where I get a lot of my creativity in terms like, if you do website design, you got to have some creativity skills. My father was a musician, so there goes that other side of the brain. And then also he introduced me to electronics. So I'm dating myself again, but there used to be a store called Radio Shack, and they would have these electronic kits, and my father would parents would get these kits for me, and I would I love the ones where you can do like 500 projects. I'm exaggerating, but 100 projects in one. You can make a radio or do something else. Man, I would get the book out and make all these kits. But that kind of helped me to get interested in some technology concepts, around electricity and understanding circuits and things like that. So I think early introduction to those things, really got me to be interested in technology. And for some reason, my father was teaching me how to solder at a young age. So if you need me to come by the house with my soldering gun and hook you up, I got you, man. But doing those things. So when I got into college, I wanted to pursue some technology degrees. And when computers started to come on the scene, and I saw this thing called the internet, I really wanted to get into how do I create web spaces, or how do I build my own computers? Because this is before you can just go and watch a video on YouTube. And man, I remember finding an article online on how to build me a computer. And my father helped me get my first PC. It didn't have a sound card, didn't have a CD-ROM drive. I went out and bought the kit and tried to install it so I could learn these concepts on my own. So it started off as a young age, my interest in technology. And I'm sure movies like Star Wars had something to do with it as well. But that's how I kind of got into technology.
I want to thank our guests for joining us again, folks. If you just joined us, because we were streaming live on YouTube, Twitter, and on LinkedIn, we're speaking with William Houston, Director and Vice President of Software Engineering at Fifth Third Bank. Just a boss in the world of technology. He's still my man, 100 grand, even though he's a Cincinnati Bengals fan. But I'm not going to be mad at him about it. But
Who
he's
day?
he said something earlier, though, I do want to comment on about his dad. And I want to give Mr. William Houston Sr. some props here because when we posted this, he showed up and liked it. So I love Black men supporting Black men, fathers and sons, even though William himself is a dad as well. So I want to shift gears a little bit in our conversation. Many Black tech leaders are very often the most senior Black person in the company, the first to hold a position, the only person in that position. And you've experienced this in your professional life. Can you talk about what it's like being the first or only Black person to do something in a company or in a specific division?
Right. And that's a great question because to your point, unfortunately, what we see is the higher you get up in the company, you don't see a lot of blacks at those levels. So unfortunately, I've been in too many meetings, right, where I was the only black in the room, too many discussions where I was only the black in the room. Don't get me wrong, I was grateful for the opportunity, but also, when I want to do what I can to help others to get into that space, as well. You kind of hear the expression, when you get to a certain place, be sure to look back and help somebody else to get to where you are. Because unfortunately, we can talk about this other also. Sometimes we get to a certain rank and you feel like, well, I got here on my own. Now you need to get there on your own. And that's another question or another thing we could tackle maybe on another discussion. But to really address your question, sometimes feeling like you're the only person in the room. Sometimes I'm not sure if other leaders have this experience, and if you're watching, I wouldn't mind you dropping some comments in the chat. But sometimes I personally feel that I'm fighting number one perceptions, and I'm fighting stereotypes. Right? There may be a preconceived notion that a person has based on something they saw on television or they've seen on the news, and I feel like I have to overcome that. Right? I don't want to say talk about any stereotypes because I don't want to put them out and to help support them. But I feel like I'm fighting those things, so I have to come with my A game, and I have to do more maybe than the others are average to represent, to show that we as a people are talented, we are educated. There's things that we do know, and most importantly, we add value to the conversation. I appreciate in the last couple of years we've heard a lot more about diversity and inclusion than we've heard before. Not before, but we've heard things a lot, and companies are starting to recognize the importance of diversifying the employee pool so they can get a diversity and a wide range of ideas. Well, we want to make sure that when we get to these spots, we are adding the value, and we are showing that we can do well. And the other thing I think is important, as Black leaders, when we get to this space, is remember that you're also forging paths for others. And what I mean by that is that, okay, you got there. Now you need to do well and to succeed so that folks will understand, other blacks can do the same thing. So if William or Will does well, then I may be more, well, not that I may be more open. They'll understand that others can do the same thing as well. So yeah, so hopefully I kind of addressed that question, but sometimes feeling like you're the only one in the room, just know that you add value, but we gotta, I just feel like I'm fighting perceptions and stereotypes, trying trying to show and prove that we do the roles that we have, we deserve them, and we do add value to companies.
Great comments, William. And I think it's important too, as you go into those rooms, as your career grows, that you manage your own self-talk,
Right.
because what other people think and say about you, it can affect you, but what you think and say about yourself can affect you more. And so it's good to have a community of people, like-minded people. One of the things that
Mhm.
we advocate at Black Tech Jobs is the importance of networking. Build your network before
Exactly.
you need
Yep.
it, both upward and outward. If you're the most senior person that your network is broken. If you don't know people enough, if a third of your network isn't people who can influence or make hiring decisions, your network is
Mhm.
broken. And so that's
That's good.
that's my There's a lot of black comics who have a one-liner like that. That's my Q4 2022 line, that if the following things are happening, your network is broken, and we want to help and encourage people to fix that. And so through conversations like this, and so if you're watching this and you haven't met Houston, I'm sorry, I got a habit of that from my military life. If you haven't met William, reach out to him, connect with him. Good brother, smart guy, great experiences, both technically and as a leader. So I want to switch a little bit because we're talking about careers. I was just talking about networking. I want to talk about mentoring. It's a word that gets thrown around a lot. We talk about it a lot. Do you have a mentor, and what role has mentoring had on your career?
Right. So currently, I recently switched to this new role, and I haven't acquired a mentor yet in my new space, but eventually I will. I've had mentors in the past, and I've had mentees in the past, and I think they're important because number one, a good mentor will help to push you, right? Because normally, in my experience, I try to get a mentor that's in a space where I want to go, right? So if I'm a director now, is there a VP or a senior VP or a CEO that I can connect with, CTO to be my mentor so they can give me advice on how to get to where I'm not at, right? So they'll help push you. They will give you information and knowledge about things that you don't know about. Like, for example, at some companies, do you know they have annual talent reviews where they get in rooms and they talk about the talent and who should go up the chain and who shouldn't. If you don't know such conversations are taking place, that can affect how you address or go forward in your work environment. So having things like that is very important. And when you talk about mentors, one of my good friends, Anthony, he would talk about often about being over mentored and under sponsored. And what he
Hmm.
meant by that was how, some people in an effort to, boost diversity and inclusion may say, okay, well, we'll get you some mentors and that's good. And they'll talk about this. But where are the sponsors? Where are folks who are making the key decisions, key hiring decisions? Where are those folks? Where who are they? What meetings are they sitting in? When they're talking about hiring or opening up a new position, who's throwing your name out there? Who's dropping your name? Who's saying, "Oh yeah, I've been mentoring Will, and I feel like Will would do good in this space, or I feel like Will will be a good candidate for this role." So, mentors are good, but I would also encourage folks who are watching people in positions of power, make sure that we're also sponsoring people in addition to mentoring them. So, a good mentor will bring on somebody, watch and see them grow, and then when you're in a spot to influence others, you can say things to people like, "Hey, I've been working with this particular. I've been working with Mary. I've been working with Martha. I've been working with John, Peter, and all the 12 disciples." I'm just kidding, but I've been working with these individuals, and I feel like they would do good in this position you're talking about. So I would encourage you to talk to them and hire them. So definitely, if you don't have a mentor, I encourage you to get one. If you're in a position of leadership, I would encourage you to get a mentee to help build up and push the next generation, and they don't have to look like you. Okay, your mentors does not like to have to look like you. I had a on one job, I was a mentor for our women's connected group, and I had a young lady I was working with, and she would talk about she was able to get some good advice from me in terms of helping her in her career direction. So just some thoughts on mentoring and mentorships.
No, no, I think that's critical. In fact, I would go as far to say is you need diversity in your network, but you also need diversity in your mentors. And
Hmm.
so your mentor relationships are so important, and your sponsorships. So if
Right.
if you are male, you could use a female mentor guiding you
Hmm.
and coaching you,
Yep.
especially if you plan to be successful at leading women. That can be helpful. And vice versa, but that's very often dominant in our in technology. But it's critical to have mentors who aren't ethnically the same. If your entire
Right.
mentor
Right.
base is black and male, you're missing opportunities because there are some
Hmm.
things that we just aren't exposed to
Exactly.
culturally. And no matter how, I have a lot of friends who've gone to Harvard and Yale and Princeton, but there are
Hmm.
still things that they have blind spots on.
Right. Right.
And get involved with organizations. There's a big thing in our community, loving everything black, but you also need to get connected to understand what other people are thinking, because the vast majority of the
Exactly.
population who are making decisions don't look like us. And so if you don't have relationships there, you don't get invited to events
Right.
or activities. And today, um, your social activity has as much to do with your career progression as your professional activity. And while we're going a little off script here, Terrence just asked a question that I want to talk about, and I want to highlight Terrence's question. Terrence Woodward asks, "How do I find a mentor?" I mean, we could do a show on this alone. Terrence, thank you for asking your question,
Good
and
question.
we want to talk about this now. So, how do I find a mentor? Yeah, I was speaking with a brother who was the former and retired global CIO at one of the largest um, consulting firms in the world, and he told me that, the process starts with building a relationship first. So go from stranger to two people who know each other's names,
Mhm.
and no matter who you are, no matter what level gap there is, you can add value to someone else. I have a mentor who's about the age of one of my daughters, and he teaches me things about social media marketing,
Right.
about all types of technology to leverage in my business. He's an entrepreneur, and the way that he operates and moves all the time. And so whenever we're in a room together and we are introducing each other to someone else, whoever speaks first says, "This is my mentor." And when I speak first, people always look at like confused. And if you don't have mentors both above you and below you from a skill and experience perspective, you're missing the boat. And so I would say, Terrence, one of the things you can do is, as you get connected, introduce yourself, lead with help. And I'm going to give you this one for free. Just ask the question, "Hey, well, it was great meeting you. How can I be helpful to you and your business?" And
Mm.
you would be jaw dropped at how people respond. And almost always people respond back with something, or, I'm doing good right now. I appreciate it. Terrence, how can I
Mm.
help you?" And so if you
Mm.
lead with help, very often you get it back, not 100% of the time. It's like anything. You're going to have to try multiple times before you get it. But if you lead with the offer to assist and support, people very often will respond afterward. And even if you're just doing it digitally, we're broadcasting live on LinkedIn, and you reach out to someone, you send them an invitation, they connect. Start with "Thank you, and
Mhm.
how can I be of service to you, and let me know if I can ever be of service." And then you quickly find that maybe you're asking, about an approach to finding a mentor. They might not be your mentor. They may be able to introduce you to someone, and there's power in
Mhm.
that. And so I'm going to switch over to, because I am not a guest on this show. Thank you,
Hey,
Terrence, for your question, and I want to get
um,
the perspective from William.
that's a great question. So thanks for watching, Terrence, and thanks for asking. And everything in addition to what Will just said, what I would also do is try to leverage employee resource groups. So hopefully you work at a company where they offer employee resource groups, because a lot of resource groups will have an offer will have the opportunity for you to get a mentor. So if you're not sure who to ask or who to connect with, when you connect with the employee resource group, you can say, "Hey, I'm looking for a mentor." Most times they already have a list of folks, and they can attach you with someone in that space to help you there. So great question, great question.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. And I want to switch gears. So hopefully, Terrence, that was helpful, and to the other watchers that they were able to see that as well. The next question we have is, this is something that we see a lot with people in the middle of their career, and even people in the early stages of their career. There's a lot of career stagnation for Blacks in technology. I mean, a lot of people whose careers are moving sideways instead of up. Um, what advice would you give to someone who's been in their role for a long period of time, who kind of watched their peers get promoted around them, and they're asking themselves, "What should I do?" What advice would you offer them with?
Well, I'll tell you what, someone in HR or a good leader will always tell you, right? You own your career path, right? You can't rely on someone else to manage it for you. You own that. So make sure you're driving it. Number one, talk to your boss, talk to your manager, talk to your supervisor. Let them know your career aspirations. A good manager we'll be having these discussions with you, like where do you want to go, where do you want to be. And if you need to know if you got a bad manager or not, I'm gonna be like, Will, I'll give you this one for free. If you are afraid to apply for a job because when you apply, your manager is going to get an email, you have a bad manager. I'm just teasing. But the fact that you're afraid to do that, that's not good. A good manager is going to have open conversations with you about your career path and where you want to go. So I would start there. I would start communicating with your manager. Let them know where you want to be. Sometimes people take jobs to do this, right? I haven't heard this in a while, but they'll take a job to get their foot in the door, right? But then
Mhm.
they've been in the same role, to your point, Will, 5, 10, 15 years. Are you communicating with your manager about where to go? If you are and they're not making moves with you, then it's time. Unfortunately, I'm sorry, it's time to leave. Don't be afraid to leave. Don't be afraid to explore. Sometimes, let's be honest, let's be transparent. Sometimes we feel like I'm just happy to have the job. I'm just happy to be here. Only 4% of the workforce is black anyway. I'm just happy to have a position. I want to encourage us today, change the way you think. I want to encourage us to think, no, 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 no. If you're not willing to have discussions with me about how to get to the next level, if you're not being honest with me about what I need to do to get there, I had a boss one time. I would ask him, hey, what's needed for me to get to the next level? One time he told me, well, I need to talk to HR and see what's next. You make these decisions, you make these approvals, you promote other people. When I got answers like that, I knew it was time for me to leave because they're not willing to invest. They're not willing to invest. So don't be afraid to leave. Don't be afraid to explore. Please have those conversations with your manager. That is crucial. You have those conversations. Take away excuses. You may for apply for a job and they tell you you don't have enough experience. Okay. When I mentor people, sometimes they say, I want to get into website development, but in my current role, I do this. Or I want to get into project management, and in my current role, I do this. I don't have the opportunity to get that experience. Well, you know what? There's a lot of volunteer organizations that need these skill sets. Go volunteer to build somebody's website. Go volunteer to run a nonprofit's project management, do something for them. By getting that experience, now you can apply it to your resume. So now a recruiter, when they look at your resume, they'll see skill sets you've built, and then also invest in yourself. If we can spend 10 hours binge watching a TV show, surely you can hop on YouTube and watch a show about how to learn Perl or not Perl, that's too, how to learn C sharp or Python or PHP. You can learn these things. Like I shared before, when I wanted to learn how to build a computer, I found an article online. When I wanted to learn PHP, I didn't take a class. I went out and found articles on the internet and I learned how to do it. And I would program on the side to learn how to get the skill set. And then so
Uh-oh. And William, you're breaking up a little bit on me.
a lot of companies will provide free training for you, right? They'll do training and there's classes you can take. Leverage those opportunities to learn those things on the job. Get that training, apply that to your resume. So if your current employer is not willing to take you to the next level, at least learn skill sets there that will help you in your next opportunity.
Okay. And when you broke up a little bit, so I want to just elaborate on a couple things that you were talking about. There, i- this pathway for self-efficacy is important, and I'll tell a brief story. I met a sister at an event for Black women in STEM, and she was the first grad. I'm here in Chicago. She was the first graduate of Illinois State University from their graduate engineering program. Brilliant woman. I met her in her 60s, and she told the story about sitting in the same job for a decade and
Mhm.
watching all of her peers who had started with her get promoted except her. And
Wow.
she talked to her boss about it 10 years into the role and said, I'm frustrated because all of these people around me are getting promoted. that aren't as skilled as I am. And like, what am I doing wrong? And he said, "Oh, I thought you were happy with your job. I didn't know you wanted to be promoted."
Wow.
And there's two lessons here. The first one is kind of not to go biblical, but ask and you shall receive. But you want to
Mhm.
have those conversations about your ambition, not in a demanding way, but if they don't know, they can't help. As
Right.
my grandfather used to say, closed mouths don't get fed. And
Okay.
then the second part of that is you don't have to be unhappy with your current role to get
Mhm.
promoted or to
Right.
even leave your current position. And
Yep.
so you should never find yourself in a situation where you're frustrated by your current role when you are then banging on the door of your manager, because typically kind of where you are mentally isn't the right space to have the conversation. When you are supremely happy and things are going well, and typically you doing your job well will get you a raise and additional responsibility. You demonstrating that you can add more value at a higher level will get you promoted. But you do need to be able to have the conversations. And if you're hearing this and these are foreign concepts, even difficult concepts, and that is absolutely fair, that's why mentoring and sponsorship is helpful. And we talked a bit about mentoring, but sponsors often take you places that you can't get on your own.
Mhm.
And so one of the ways that you can identify if your manager recognizes you as someone who could replace him or her, they start having you sit in the meetings as their replacement.
Yep.
They
Yep.
bring you into meetings to do presentations on a topic.
Mhm.
They allow and showcase you as a subject matter expert on a project,
Right.
a topic, or a program that the team is working on. You lead the team meetings in their absence.
Mhm. Yep.
And I give you, if you don't have a speaking part in the movie of your job,
Mhm.
your career advancement isn't going forward at a pace that it could be. And so, I think start asking the conversations of how, lead with the word how. How can I put myself in a better position? How can I improve my chances? How can I? And you will find that then you will get answers and support, or you'll discover that you don't have the support that you need for that role. And if you're missing the skills, be receptive to that and follow Williams' advice. So, what would you recommend my pathway be to improve my skills so I can earn this opportunity? Um, and so I'll pause there. We're going to shift because we've got a number of
Well, I'm
common
sorry.
questions. No, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. To piggyback on that very quickly, in management, sometimes you have people that just like to do their job, and there's people who want to lead and go to the next level. Your manager, to Will's point, won't know that unless you communicate that to them and let them know. So be sure to speak up and advocate for yourself so that people are aware of that. So I just wanted to throw that in there. Good point. Good point.
Sure. And Michael asked the question about in a job interview. Often you're asked about where you'd like to be within 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, and that's often an interesting question. And sometimes you can trip yourself up and remove yourself from an opportunity if the question's answered wrong.
Mhm.
The best answer is first an honest answer. But you want to address the fact that you are here today to interview for this job, and this is what your primary focus is. So make that perfectly clear that you want this one. But in the future, and I use the E word a lot, you want to earn the opportunity and demonstrate your skills so that you can execute at a higher level. But you don't necessarily have to label a specific job title to go along with that. Thanks, Jamari. Did you have any comments on that, William?
No, that's good feedback because um, and to your point, once you get into the role, I would then, communicate and let them know, like, hey, I'm so happy to be here, but I do have aspirations, right? And this is where I would like to go in the future. Because I know that me as a leader, I like a person who has aspirations and there's a place they want to go, right? Like, for example, if before my daughter got married, if a young man was going to knock on the door, I still do this at my church. If y'all see you dating one of the young ladies of our church, what you want to be when you grow up, where you want to go. I'm asking about aspiration. So it's good to know that folks have aspirations and they are letting their managers know about that when they come on board. So good stuff.
Cool. We've got some great questions in the chat. I want to go to this one really quick. If we do take different courses and pick up different skills, we note that on a different section of our resume? And so I think this is a great question about resume marketing. And as a recruiter, I can comment a little bit, and I'm going to turn it over to William. So there's two things. Your resume, the goal of your resume is to get you the interview. So this is, and the interview is your first date. So it's not a wedding or proposal. And so you want to provide enough information to demonstrate that you have the capacity to do the job. And kind of where you place it in formatting. My best advice on winning in the resume game is, it's 2022, and not everyone does this, but I highly recommend it. I had a very, very, very senior recruiting friend of mine do that for me some years ago because my resume was stuck in the 90s at the time, and she told me that, and I want to thank her for doing that. I'm not going to shout her name out because she's kind of a celebrity these days, but um, she told me, "Will, Google the title that you want and the word resume followed by it, and see what your competition is doing to present themselves to employers. Use every ounce of leverage to copy, modify your resume to match or improve upon what you see. It's the easiest way to do it because those are the people you're competing against. And it also tell you, do your skills match up? It's a good way, and it happens in a matter of seconds, a few minutes of strolling through and look at the images. Everything you need to know about what you should share and what you shouldn't share, you'll find. And then when you have doubts or questions, come back. We'll do more, and we'd love to have you and answer more deeply about what you've learned there. But thank you for that question, Tamara. Thank you for your question, Michael. I'm going to circle down here a little bit to Terry commented. This is interesting. Terry, I love this isn't about race, it's about speaking up. And race is a factor, Terry, and thank you for bringing it up. But we bring Black tech executives to our show, and we highly focus on that segment. We specialize in that community. That's our community of Black tech jobs, our senior Black tech professionals, because they exist in a world where they have to be something other than just Black. So you can't deny that William is Black, but he is a senior executive in technology, and when he goes to work, he shows up as that. But he doesn't get to leave, his Black cape and uniform at home either. So he has to be both. So thank you for that comment, and we think that that's important. I'm glad that you picked up on that, Terry. There's a longer question. This is a big one here. What route should you take if you feel discriminated against by the company? Leave, such as presenting issues, providing documentation to HR. They didn't address the issue, instead attempting to have me sign job and responsibility alignment documents instead of addressing the issues. Man, this is tough. Every one of these situations is unique, so there's no one size fits all. I operate within the HR space. I spend a lot of time around HR pros. I have a lot of friends who are chief people officers, and HR's function in presenting an issue isn't necessarily to solve it. So they're kind of the middle person between the management team. It's up to the managers to solve it. The HR folks act as a counselor and an advisor to leadership, and they present the ideas. The leaders are likely coming back and giving the HR folks directives and saying, this is how we want to deal with it. And sometimes those directives aren't the best answer. And so HR professionals are often put in a squeezed position. So they very often take the blows for it, and sometimes they do misstep. And I think you have to judge this on a case by case basis. But I would say, if you think you can make the situation better, do that. If you're convinced that you can't, you should do what's within your powers to create the best work-life environment that you can. We have to recognize the realities that every place isn't a great place. William and I were having a conversation earlier about people with great talents who show up in the wrong environments, and this was in a sporting environment. You could look at the Los Angeles Lakers. They have a shooting guard who's arguably one of the greatest players that played, and he is kind of a sixth man today, and he will probably end up being one of the top 50 players of all time. That guy that shoots a triple double every game, every season, or a double double. And he probably isn't on the right team at the right time, and that's okay. This is Russell Westbrook I'm talking about. So if those of you who are wondering what in the world is he talking about, this blind sports analogy, And so to Dexter, I would say you may be the Russell Westbrook, and you may being at the Lakers seem exciting, great company. But there's been lots of articles about black tech professionals leaving places that are viewed as great companies, and they may have a great product or great service, and many people may use it, but it may not be the best place for black tech professionals to work. And not every company is at the same place in their professional journey. But I would also say make sure that whatever you do, should you decide to leave, that you take a lesson away from that experience, both in the skills to assess if it's the right place for you, to assess if this is the right manager for you, and to make sure that there's a skill match. Because sometimes if we get either over our skis or under our skis, meaning the job isn't challenging enough, it's hard for us to perform at our best. So hopefully that answer helps and provides some feedback there, because it is a very common situation for people to be in the wrong position at the wrong time and still be exceptionally talented. And you could also go back to Steve Jobs when he was removed from Apple as a CEO once upon a time. And then you could probably even say that for Microsoft, because Bill Gates has made a heck of a lot of money, retired, probably more than he did when he was going to Microsoft, working every day. And the new CEO and their executive leadership team has revamped that company, and they're doing amazing things. Now, to be clear, they weren't doing bad things before, but very often the enemy of great is good, quoting the book from Mr. Collins. So I'll pause there. I said a lot. Again, I'm not a guest on the show. William, comments on the question, and even my response, anything you want to share?
First of all, I didn't know about your HR background, so I appreciate the lens you allowed me to view that through. Sometimes I do get mad at HR, but understanding the relationship, I apologize to all my HR friends. Secondly, deuces, man. If you don't want me, if you're not being right by me, especially in this job market, there's too many other jobs. There's somebody out there that would appreciate your skill sets. But I like what Will said. Take a learning from that. Keep on moving. And if a lawyer is watching, call them up too. Have them help you out. Yeah, man, I would do so.
We've been talking about interviewing. Great questions from the folks who are watching us live today. I want to throw one out in around that, so I'm going to go off script from some things I was thinking about before. Um, William, you're a hiring manager, and this is something that I really want to encourage as many black tech professionals as possible to do, is to become a hiring manager, become a multiplier. Because when you're a hiring manager, you can help drive diversity. Um, One question I have is, you interview a lot of people. What's your favorite interview question? Because we've run over time a bit. So, William, thank you for extending, and our audience, thank you for extending too. But I think this question is worth asking based on some of the comments that we've heard. What's your favorite interview question to ask people that you interview, and why?
Yeah, I have a few of them. One of them is I like to ask, if I go back to your manager and ask them, about you, how would they describe you? What would they tell me that's your strengths, or what is value that you add to the team, right? I'm thinking about one engineer I had on my team before, great engineer, but man, I tell you what, if we had a production issue, I don't think he slept until the problem was solved, right? He would attack the issue to solve the issue for our customer. So, knowing that, okay, someone's a great engineer or maybe an average engineer, but they have like another quality or skill that may not come across on their resume, I try to ask questions that kind of get those tendencies out of them. So that's one question that I like to ask as a part of the interview process.
Awesome. Terrence is making a self plug. Terrence, he needs to hire him. Terrence, you need, what I would recommend is reach out to William, play offense, build that relationship, lead with help, and then I think magic can happen for you, my brother. There is
Great.
something else that's happening in the world. I was reading TechCrunch. I read a lot of articles from a lot of great tech resources out there in the marketplace, and there's been layoffs. And sadly, when they come, there's not a lot of warning. You don't know that it's happening at your firm. It's happening at senior levels. It's very sophisticated decision making, and it may come to a person you personally, someone in your family. There have been thousands of people laid off. What advice would you give to people who may experience a layoff? And and I'll just leave it there. I'll just leave it broad. What advice would you give to someone who may have experienced a layoff?
That's a great question. I was at a job one time, and I worked with a woman. through our employee resource group, and she did a lot at the company. I mean, she did a lot. And one day we get an email that such and such is leaving the company. Thank you for your service. We'll be back. Man, when I read the email, I thought all the great things this person has done for the company and their career is summed up in two sentences, right? And then also went through a layoff as well. Um, and what these things teach, what they taught me, and I hate to say this, but unfortunately, at the end of the day, in fact, all of you now who are at work and you have a badge, look at your badge. There may be a number on there, your employee number. Unfortunately, at the end of the day, some companies are about profit, and we're just a series of numbers, right? Uh, Sometimes at management levels, they may come in and say, look, we're not having a good year. We need to bring in the budget. We have to do some cuts. Who can we cut? Now we're looking at numbers to meet numbers, right? So because of that, the way I like to encourage folks, if you're going to treat me as a number, then I need to leverage all the resources that you offer me while I'm an employee to get the most out of you because you're trying to get the most out of me. So, like I said earlier, leverage every single training opportunity that you can leverage. I don't care if you take so many classes you take in basket weaving. I'm just kidding. But my point is, try to get as much training from the company as you can. Try to create try to be mentored by as many people as you can. And as Will stated earlier, I I never knew the value of networking until I attended a employee resource group session on networking. But build your network, connect with folks. I some uh, one a couple of years ago on LinkedIn, this one guy reached out to me. We used to work at a company. He said, "Hey, I move jobs every 2 or 3 years. I'm looking for my next role. Do you have any opportunities?" So I was a part of his network, and now he's asking me questions about X, Y, and Z. So to prepare for layoffs, continue to invest in yourself, leverage all the resources at your current company, keep your network alive, right? So there's some people you may have in your network you don't talk to every year. That's fine. At least every 6 months, hey, just saying hi, just stay connected to these people. So when these moves happen, you can reach out to them and say, hey, I'm looking for work now. Is your ear on the ground, or are you aware of anything? So leverage those opportunities, network, and save. Stack your money. Don't spend all you bringing in. So that when these changes come, you have something to live off of until you get your next opportunity. Just a few things there.
No, that's good stuff. One of the things, because we are, the economy is shifting, or I would even say has shifted, with inflation. So that's driving a lot of this. During these times, we're talking about leveraging your network. We were talking about diversifying your network earlier. So if you just joined us, one of the other things that I think I failed to mention is make sure that you have recruiters in your network, both corporate
Mhm.
and private recruiters. And so if someone reaches out to you about a job opportunity and it isn't a good fit, it isn't the right location, it isn't the right compensation, it isn't remote, don't dismiss that. Because you may need
Mhm.
them later. It might be this
Right.
year, next year, 2 years, 5 years. Though if you keep those warm and you just reach out, it's a good idea to do that. And even now during these times, just connecting with people, and don't assume that even though it's their job, the recruiters to recruit, that because they're meeting so many people that
Mhm.
they remember your conversation. But it's so
Right.
much easier when you come back to them and you see a role at the company they work for. And remember, recruiters change jobs a lot. And so, they might be with Amazon 1 month, and next year they may be with Facebook. And so if you
Right.
follow them, you may be able to follow your way to career opportunities. So take advantage of those interactions. Always be courteous, even when you're saying no, because you never know who they will be. So today's recruiter will be someone's head of recruiting at some point. And my advice to recruiters is the reverse. Today's software engineer is going to be someone's director of engineering at some point, someone's CIO, someone's CTO. And
Right.
so treat everyone as though that they could introduce you to a life-saving opportunity, and do the reverse. Be kind to everyone that you encounter. So I'm going to pause here. We've run way over, and my friend William has been so gracious with his time. William, what are you working on? Anything you want to share? Any closing comments before we say goodbye?
Uh, I am working on if you like to play card games, check out this and that cardgame.com. I think it's this and that or this that cardgame.com. Got a network. I got a game I'm working on with the creator of That's What She Said, a board game. I got that on the side. But otherwise, I don't have any current openings on my team, but please be sure to follow me on LinkedIn. So if I do have an opening, you can reach out to us. As Will said earlier, I work at Fifth Third Bank. If there's an opportunity you see at the bank, I don't mind doing an intro for you to help you to reach out and to connect with someone. As Will stated earlier, or I think I said this earlier, as we get to higher positions, in companies, it's important for us to look back and to help pull up others. I love the crab analogy. I hate the fact that sometimes we're trying to get over a wall and people are pulling us down. Me and Mr. Will McNeil, we're not like that. We're here to support each other and help one another and to help push folks over the wall. So if you ever have any technical questions or want me to look over a resume or looking for advice or anything, I'm always here to help because I'm looking for the next set of individuals who are going to come in and take our places. One day, me and Will are going to retire. We'll be in Hawaii, kicking back, enjoying life, and we need folks to come in and take over and continue what we've started as we continue to build on what others have started for us.
Love it, love it, love it. I couldn't have closed it out any better. Ladies and gentlemen, William Houston, Director and Vice President of Digital, Software Engineering at Fifth Third Bank. Hardcore Bengals fan, family man, all around good dude. I'm happy to call him friend, and I and I look forward to continuing to evolve our relationship. Here at Black Tech
Yes,
Jobs,
sir.
we are committed to connecting the Black Tech community opportunity every day. We wake up believing we can change the world by changing the mix of people that drive business and technology one person at a time, one job opportunity at a time. And if you are actively looking, there are two roles that we are actively recruiting for. One as a data engineer in Chicago for a great investment bank, and then another role we're working on in Columbus, Ohio, not too far from William, is as a senior data architect. Great gigs, great comp, great opportunities. Feel free to in message me if you see this and you want more information, or if you know someone who's a good match, feel free to make an introduction. And if you and I are not connected yet on LinkedIn, let's make sure that we do that. I have a vast network, and where I can be helpful and make introductions, I'm always happy to do that. So I close with this.
Uh,
No, go
Will,
ahead.
Will is the real deal. Black Tech Jobs is the real deal. They're not just talking. They're really invested in you and they want to be a help to you. So I encourage you to reach out and work with them. If you're an employer, if you're looking for diversity and talent, or if you're an employee and you're looking for something, when Will talks, he's not talking hot air. He means what he says. I don't like to connect my people who waste my time, and this is a brother that will help invest in you. So I definitely support him in Black Tech Jobs. Thank you for the opportunity, sir.
Thank you, William. And I'll close with this. Do your best, and then do your best again. Thanks, everyone. Have an awesome day and a great close to your week. Bye now.
Bye bye. Thank you.